So that's good. Let's stay it down.
I know.
I'll double check if I missed any.
Good evening, everyone. May I ask you to please stand to salute the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just want to welcome everybody back from the spring recess. Thank you for coming out. I just wanted to express the regrets of Mr. Pinto, who's not able to be here tonight. He had death in the family, so he's attending to his brother's loss. So we send our condolences and wish his family all the best. At this point, I'll turn it over to the superintendent.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. Tonight for our student showcase, we have a number of students here from our middle school and high school who are going to speak to us about two wonderful programs in each of our buildings. At both the middle school and the high school, we've been designated no Place for Hate communities over the past 5 years. And that program has continued to grow and involve more students at each school. So we're going to have some students explain the background on that. And this year, for the first time, our high school is engaged in a program called Names Not Numbers. And it's a really unique program that involves high school students in interviewing Holocaust survivors and then filming and editing a documentary about them, which in turn will be shown to our other high school students. It's a great way for students to experience firsthand research and also to really speak to a generation of survivors who, will be with us forever. So to hear that first-person account and share that with their peers, we're proud of those programs. So, Mr. Wu, and I don't know who's going to go first. Do you want to MC that for us? Perfect.
Good evening, everyone. We are proud to present some of what we've been doing as a school over the years with No Place for Hate. The No Place for Hate organization is through the Anti-Defamation League.
Mr. Steve, it might be better if you use the microphone because then the people at home will be able to hear you as well. I know it's kind of weird to want to face the audience, but if you just kind of use the microphone first.
Yeah, so the No Place for Hate is a part of the Anti-Defamation League. And it's just really given us a vehicle to share the philosophy of being a community where hate and discrimination is not accepted. And I'm passing this on to Mr. Lewin.
Okay, on the mic as well. So we have a No Place for Hate team in our middle school, and that team really consists of students and staff. We work together collaboratively to promote our message. So tonight, we have two of our middle school students, Eva Gargiulo, who's an 8th grader, Ben Levinson, who's a 7th grader, who are going to talk about some of our work that we've done in the middle school towards No Place for Hate.
No Place for Hate is an organization that helps address hate and discrimination in our school. It helps to make a positive change in the school community and make sure that they always feel safe and welcome both in and out of school.
We know that hate is something that exists. We are not saying No Place for Hate completely eliminates hate from the world, but it helps reduce it in many schools, including ours. No Place for Hate gets the message across that it's important to create a kinder and safer school and community for students and faculty. No Place for Hate connects all students across the world. One of our building-wide projects was a book club that was introduced during one of our No Place for Hate committee meetings. In order to get the entire school involved, we had teachers show videos to their classes and send out a good Google form that all students used to vote on which book they liked best. Every student will hear the book I Am Human, which is a picture book on empathy. Students will learn how to put themselves in their peers' shoes and understand what they are feeling. This book teaches the importance of empathy among our students in our school and our community.
This was a mural that we completed last year during the pandemic, where every student was involved, where index cards were passed around and each student got to paint on them different colors. They were then cut up and used to form a collage by the art club with the Swan and No Place for Hate to form the Dolphin and Wave mural that's now presented in our school. The one that's currently being worked on and prototyped is called the I Am We Are mural, which is supposed to represent uniqueness and difference among our students, where the thing that makes students unique is what makes them special, and that they're supposed to embrace their special qualities.
You guys want to say anything more?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeffrey Noss. I'm the advisor for the Anti-Bully Club at High School. I'm going to introduce Liam White. He's the president for the club, and we also have the No Place for Hate program as well at the high school.
Hey guys, I'm Liam, and as Mr. Noss just said, I'm the president of the Anti-Bully Club. Since 2019, Long Beach High School has been designated as a No Place for Hate school. To start the process, students and staff sign a pledge that is proudly hung in the Commons. Our pledge includes the following points. I will seek to gain understanding of those who are different from myself. I will speak out against prejudice and discrimination. I will reach out to support those who are targets of hate. I'll promote respect for people and help foster a prejudice-free zone. I believe that one person can make a difference. No person can be an innocent bystander when it comes to opposing hate. And I recognize that respecting individual dignity and promoting intergroup harmony are the responsibilities of all students. Throughout the school year, the Anti-Bully Club creates programs and participates in activities to support our students and staff as a whole. Since 2020, we have attended virtual seminars on equality in the classroom, volunteered with Ms. Conway to present a plaque on the Long Beach boardwalk about the importance of Dr. Martin Luther King and his visit to Long Beach, explained the importance of understanding microaggressions, collaborated with the art club to add our unifying message on the LBHS East fence. We worked with other clubs and students to discuss upcoming events and help to raise awareness for ongoing activities. Since our initiation to No Place for Hate, Long Beach High School has been designated as a Gold Star school because of our extra efforts in bringing awareness to our school community. We look forward to continuing to maintain our No Place for Hate designation throughout future years. Thank you guys so much. Hello, my name is Ryder Moss. I'm a member of the Names Not Numbers program at Long Beach High School. Names Not Numbers is a Holocaust documentary film offered to schools around the U.S., Canada, and Israel. The film follows students as they learn the main aspects of filmmaking from journalists and filmmakers, including research, interviewing techniques, filming techniques, and editing, to prepare them for the rigorous process for interviewing film survivors and liberators themselves. They also undergo the rigorous process of editing the survivors' 1.5-hour interview down to 15 minutes, which is added to the DVD as the extended version of their survivors' interview. The interviews are further cut down and intertwined with the other survivors who were interviewed from the same school that given year, and the feature-length films are screened at the end of the school year for the students, their families, the participants, and the community.
I had the opportunity to take part in the Names Not Numbers initiative, and it has been an amazing experience from beginning to end. The current editing phase has been undeniably integral, necessary, and interesting, but learning the history behind each individual survivor's experience is something that will truly have a lasting impact on not just us members, but anyone who watches the film. We spent a lot of time learning with Dr. Moran, who unfortunately could not be here today, about the Holocaust. We met outside of school to discuss the individuals we would be interviewing. We got the opportunity to formulate effective questions with Dr. Moran, and then we got on stage and interviewed the survivors with a professional filmmaker and editor. We then spent time again with Dr. Moran, cutting down the nearly 2-hour film down for each survivor to nearly 16 minutes. Everything they had to say was rich with important information and emotion, making editing a challenging and thought-provoking task. We wholeheartedly feel honored to have been given this amazing opportunity, and we believe that it should live on year to year. I'm extremely thankful to everyone that made this possible. We worked with Tova Rosenberg, the founder of Names Not Numbers, with Mr. Myers, who allowed all this to happen, and with Mrs. Rusko, who is here today. Thank you, Mrs. Rusko, who is a parent and helped teach us about her experiences with the program in her school, and really helped to coordinate efforts to meet with the survivors. Names Not Numbers is an inspiring and extremely important program that we feel blessed to be a part of. I hope that it will continue long into the future, as Holocaust education is so important. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our students who presented tonight. I think that you must have taken lessons in your programs about effective public speaking as well, because you were extremely articulate and you really gave great presentations, so thank you. I also want to mention that the film that the students produced in Names Not Numbers will be available for community viewing as well, so look for that for details about that on our website. Thank you again. And if you guys, you're welcome to stay in the meeting, but if you have to go home and do homework, that kind of stuff, we totally understand. Please let you know.
Before you guys leave, I just wanted to make a few comments. I wanted also to echo what Dr. Gallagher said about the way you guys spoke this evening. Just so impassioned, and I was so impressed with you guys overall. As far as the No Place for Hate program, the book on empathy, I read an article recently that said the #1 most important thing for a leader to have is empathy. And to be an effective leader, it literally is the #1 thing. So I love that that was a book that was picked. And as far as the collaboration with the clubs, the No Place for Hate, with all the different art clubs, I love seeing that it bleeds through. And lastly, with Names Not Numbers, thank you for speaking so passionately. I could feel like you were vibrating, and I just love that excitement. But also, what a wonderful gift this is to our students. The legacy of these survivors to live on, but they're dying at this point. There's not many left, right? So the fact that you have the opportunity to interact and hear their stories firsthand, I think is incredible, and I'm so thrilled that that program was running. So I just want to make those comments.
And Mrs. Pace, I was just notified there is another student who would like to just say a few words about Names Not Numbers as well.
Yeah,
Jenna, did you want to? Jenna, did you want to say something? Or did they lie to me?
No, I'm still here.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I just wanted to talk about the Names Not Numbers program a little bit, just my experiences at Long Beach High School in relation to the program. My name is Jenna Rusko, and I'm a participant of the Names Not Numbers program. I'm grateful to have participated in the Names Not Numbers program, where I had the opportunity to learn about the experience of survivors firsthand. This project was so meaningful to me that I participated both this year and last year. The whole process was extremely emotional, and it really stuck with me. The experience made me realize that I can never be a bystander when others are suffering. The mission of this project was to transform the traditional study of the Holocaust into an experiential program by interviewing real-life survivors. In addition, the program inspires future generations to combat anti-Semitism and all forms of hatred and intolerance. However, this project isn't just to raise awareness about anti-Semitism, but it speaks to humanity as a whole. As a student at Long Beach High School, I don't feel that this tragedy, the genocide of millions of innocent minorities and those who have tried to save them, is taught enough, leaving students with a lack of understanding as to why writing swastikas in the bathroom walls and throwing change at students that are Jewish is so offensive and wrong. Throughout my years as a student at Long Beach High School, I've personally been a victim of anti-Semitism myself. I have been criticized and stereotyped based on my religion, and I know that I'm not the only one. Although these types of issues have never been reported, well, they have been reported to the school, there's never been significant change. Additionally, it feels like some of us that have had a great lack of concern about the Holocaust education in our school system. I am now a junior in Long Beach High School, and the only time I really learned about the Holocaust was from a novel, Night, by Elie Wiesel, which I read in middle school. I recently discovered that that isn't a part of the curriculum anymore and hasn't been replaced by any other Holocaust education. I'm not sure if that's true, but I've just been aware of that, and it was just really disappointing to hear. The only way that we can really learn about the future is to study the past. This topic is not just important for Jews. There are genocides occurring in every decade. If kids are not taught of these tragedies, is an opportunity for individuals to truly sympathize for others, and that opportunity is being missed. As tonight's board meeting is focused on the No Place for Hate movement, I hope that the Board of Education, school administrators, and the students, and the education and the board of the school as a whole will consider designing and implementing the quality of Holocaust education, which can lead to life-changing opportunities about racism, stereotyping, propaganda, and the need for our school communities to be inclusive of all students, regardless of their race, gender, sexual orientation, or religion. Thank you so much for listening to my concerns. Have a good night.
Thank you, Joanna. We appreciate you sharing your thoughts, and certainly take your concerns and ideas into consideration.
May I just add, I really admire the children who spoke out tonight. It's not easy to speak in front of the public, and both of you just did it eloquently. And so did the two young children who left. Thank you so much for your thoughts, and remember, we are here to listen to you. So even if things are not always easy to hear, we do want to hear them. So thank you, and thank you for all the hard work you are doing with the names and numbers in the No Place for Hate. And I'd also like to thank the educators, Mr. Nas, for all that you're doing to help make sure that our children are receiving all of this information in an appropriate manner that they can understand it. So thank you.
Thank you. Tonight, as you know, we've been going through the budget process over the past few months. The board did adopt the budget in our last meeting. And as a follow-up to that, we wanted to do a follow-up presentation on the federal grant money, we call it the ARP grant, the American Rescue Plan money, that many districts, including ours, have received as a result of COVID, and the federal government is trying to give us supplementary money to address some of the issues that have arisen as a result of the pandemic. So tonight I asked Mr. DeVito if he would give us an update on the grant money, which is given over a 3-year period, what we have originally planned to use that money for, and some updates on what we would like to plan for the future.
Thank you, Dr. Gallagher. Good evening, everybody. So we are going to present the updated plan, and when we made the plan last year, we knew it was going to be a living document because we were going to present some programs, some different initiatives that were new, and we didn't know exactly what the costs were going to be. So now that we've lived through so far one summer and almost the full school year, we have a better idea of some costs, and that we can then update the plan accordingly, and also add some new things that we didn't initially envision. So let's first talk about in-school and after-school enrichment as a category. And you see here what I have is I have on the left, under the tan column heading program description, a couple of different initiatives. We'll start with the after-school enrichment. Initially, we thought it was going to run about $1.3 million for the 3-year period. Based on what we've been seeing so far with session 1 and session 2, we realized that we can proceed with about $597,000 over the 3-year period, and that then allows us some funding to shift to other areas. So based on the cost re-estimates, we can now fund 2 teachers for the new discovery period that we've been talking about over this budget cycle, where we're extending the elementary school day. We're actually shifting a professional period, and we're creating a new 40-minute period. So we have 15 minutes of additional instruction paired with the 25-minute professional period, and now we have a new 40-minute period, and we need to staff it. So we're going to put 2 of these new teachers for this discovery period in the what we call the ARC grant. You see, the initial cost was NA because that wasn't something we talked about last year. But now that we have some funding that we can shift, we now can fund these 2 teachers. In addition, we thought we were going to do widespread high school tutoring, and we realized that that's not really something that's as productive as we thought it was going to be. So the initial cost of about $330,000 is now revised to a $30,000 cost over the 3-year period. The next category I'm calling student support, and again, based on cost re-estimates, we now have funds available to include a new assistant director of special education that we're going to be posting for shortly. The initial cost in this category, again, we didn't have one because it wasn't something that we thought of last year, and this is what we're projecting for the over the full 3-year grant period, $465,000 for this assistant director. And just to note, that does include benefits, so it's not just salary, it's salary on benefits. Of course.
You, just as a clarity, as you go through this, you're talking about that right-hand column is the cost for the entire 3 years, right?
That's right.
But aren't we already 1 year into it?
We are.
Okay, so like for this assistant director of special education, wouldn't that could just be 2 more years?
That's correct.
So that's
2 additional years, next year and the year
Got
after.
it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. We still, no change in that special needs students as a category. The social worker was increased a bit because initially we thought it was going to be a new social worker. Now that we know it's one of our existing social workers at a different salary and benefit level, that's why that cost went up. So we had to do some cost adjustments there. Initially, we thought the column for Kate was going to be about $7,500, but over the 3-year period, it's closer to $21,000. Next category is student engagement programs. Camp Convention, we thought we were going to fund it for 3 years, and we realized that some of our priorities changed. So we're going to fund it for this summer, but we're not going to fund it for the 2 additional summers because we'd rather use the funding in some of these other categories that I mentioned that are new. Cold Spring Harbor, no change there. The Space Flight Experiments program, just some revised cost information to increase it to what we have better information of now. And then the crew team is something we've talked about over this budget cycle, is a way of engaging students in a different way than we have from the existing sports programs that we have. But instead of putting it into the budget for next year, we thought, let's pilot it, let's fund it through the ARC grant, because it's an opportunity again to engage students who may not have been engaged and see if it is any traction. So this is the estimate for again, it's this full 3-year grant period, but it's 2 additional school years, and that would be the cost that includes the vendor cost that we had talked about, plus what also is included in there is the supervision cost as well as the coach or advisor. The next category has to do with ventilation upgrades that we have scheduled for the high school. So we want to repair 7 HVAC units. You see on the left, I have some of the technical information in terms of replacing actuators, valves, sensors, and pipings, and recalibrating the controls and integrating that more appropriately into our building management system, and just a slight upgrade in terms of cost based on some better estimates that we received over the past year. Instructional support is some smaller items, some of its equipment, including the greenhouse that we talked about for a couple of years. So what we're proposing here is to have a fully enclosed greenhouse, which is different from the greenhouse that we have now over the middle school. And that's basically a different type of structure and some updated cost information there. The elementary greenhouses, that's again just updated cost. And CNC router was something that came up at the last board meeting as something that our tech, I think it was our the robotics club, thank you, robotics club, and so it was something that they could use. So we have that as a placeholder there. As a total, that's our allocation is a little over $3 million. And again, these are just estimates, right? So as we move through this 3-year grant period, as we receive actual data, better cost data, there may be some shifts from one category to another. We'll have another one of these meetings next year. We are required to have these types of meetings, at least one each year, to update the community, update the board. So we'll, do this again next year. But this is our current thinking on how we like to spend this American Rescue Plan grant. Thank you very much for your attention.
Board of Education comments, anybody? Yeah, I'll just lead off. I have to tell you, I'm a bit disappointed. When I read in the paper about where we are post-COVID in terms of educationally, all I'm reading about are reading and math scores and how kids have lost a significant amount of time. And so many of these programs, to me, don't address the reading and math concerns of kids pre-K to 12. I know I've asked in the past that maybe we should have had grade books or some kind of more instructional programs. I mean, crew team is nice, but where are kids going to have to go in terms of that? Are they going to have to go up to Deerfield up in Massachusetts to compete against Deerfield in terms of crew? How many schools in Nassau County and Suffolk County have crew teams? So it's kind of nice. I know everybody thinks they might be able to get a scholarship to an Ivy League school because they do crew for a year, but I think that's more a myth than a reality. So I have to say that in terms of my original conceptualization of this funding, I thought it would be more geared towards academic programs and enrichment programs in terms of that. Now, I know the after-school programs, I know the lab programs, I know social-emotional learning is important, nobody's discrediting that. But I wish there were more money being spent in terms of academic interventions, pre-K to 12 in terms of this. That's my initial reaction. I thank you for the presentation. I thank you for the effort that went into it. But in terms of, for me, it's all about academics in terms of the school system. The other stuff is nice. Certainly we need a room for no place to hide social emotional learning. The academics are primary. I'm not so sure we're spending the $3 million where it needs to be spent. Anybody else?
Respond to that?
Let's hear other board members because then maybe you can respond to all of them. Anybody else?
Sure, I'll go next. Thank you for the presentation, I appreciate it. I just have a couple more technical kind of questions. If we are hiring 2 teachers for 2 years, the discovery teachers, which is our extra period because we've extended the elementary school day, are we hiring, and I have the same question vis-a-vis the assistant director for special education, are we hiring them as grant-funded employees? Like whenever we have used a grant to fund a position, I've made it a point to make sure that those people understand that they're being hired under a grant, and that should the grant money run out, which we know this grant money is going to run out, that their job could be gone at that point. So maybe it's not even a question for you, it might be a question more for Dr. Gallagher or Dr.
I could just say that, it may be a backfill. So again, the particular teacher that is doing the discovery period, maybe a teacher we already have on staff, right, who is already part of a permanent position. But to backfill that teacher who is now going to move into that discovery program, it will be grant funded. So we do have to be clear to the teacher that may be replacing the teacher who is going to do the discovery period, that's from grant funding.
Yeah,
So, and there are requirements around that.
Even more than that, Mrs. Rona, any teachers who are hired in a district, attrition is always like a low man on the totem pole, no matter what their position is. So if we're hiring certified elementary tenure area teachers, those teachers may be people who are transfers within our system. But if we bring on new teachers, they always know that they're going around the total goal and we have to reduce staff. Why would we have to do that? Reduction in employment, budget issues in the future, that they would be the lowest.
And that's my concern here, really. It's a double whammy. In 2 years, this $3 million is going to go away while we're having declining enrollment, while we're trying to help our community by keeping our tax levy down. Then that all adds up to this perfect storm of come September of 2024, us having established a whole bunch of really great programs that we now have no way to pay for.
And we talk about that all the time. I mean, do we not do great programs because we may not be able to fund them in the future? I think the more transparent we are with people that, this may be something we can sustain for 3 years and not going forward. Or in 3 years, we might have to make some difficult choices, like this is so important to us, like after School Enrichment has gotten great reviews. This is so important to us that if it's, $100,000, $200,000 a year, we may have to look for that efficiency somewhere else.
Well, and therefore, that's my very question. I want to be completely transparent, not just with the people that are sitting in the audience, and not just among us. I want to be transparent with the people that were hired.
Completely true, but it is not always so easy to pinpoint who that person is. What could happen in 3 years? We may have retirements, we may have shifts in, we need this person here, we need that person there. Any probationary teacher who's hired in a district knows that if you are the last hired, if for any reason, whether grant funding runs out, enrollment drops, unforeseen financial difficulties, you would be the person to go.
Okay.
I'd just like to add to that, if I may, do they still have the right to callback in terms of the
If
list?
they're hired as probationary teachers, they do.
So they still, in terms of that list, they're at the top of the list, basically, if they performed in a good and admirable way, they're still in a primary position in terms of callback.
You mean the preferred eligible list? Is that before you receive tenure or after you receive tenure?
If you're hired in probationary track, you're qualified.
So if you're hired as a grant fund, you're not on a preferred eligible
So
list?
it doesn't matter. So we have some people who are hired, for example, as regular subs or permanent subs. So it really isn't, well, that person is the person who go.
Just to clarify, I have a question. So if they're grant-funded teachers, does that mean they're not on a tenure track?
No. So it has nothing to do with it.
One thing has nothing to do with it. Okay.
Well, it should, in my book, it should. We should be telling teachers, if you're hired under a grant, that you're behind. Because
But suppose you're a teacher who's been in our district for 20
And
years.
the reason it happens is because, and Michael, there is no better person that I would ever want to have to put my budget together than you. You are phenomenal. But when I see things like teachers stuck in a grant that I know are part of our operating budget, it makes me very, well, like 1 year a social worker will go into a grant and I'll think, now that's a 10-year social worker. How would you feel like, so it appears, the appearance of impropriety.
But I think the flip side to that, Mrs. Brona, is we're trying to balance priorities. We want to come in with budgets that don't have a great impact on taxpayers. We've said that over and over again. Second year in a row, we're doing a zero. If some of the money that we receive in grants can help us to keep our budgetary numbers lower, we should do that. And in fact, have been doing that for years.
Well, of
With
course
the
we
title
should,
grants.
of course we should. I mean, that's
It isn't always so easy to identify an employee who would be on the list to be let go if a grant ran out. The two discovery teachers here, like the people who are transfers, who've been here for 20 years. If this grant runs out, they go back, and we don't continue this, they would go back into the class.
But the people hired to replace them, are they probationary appointments?
Yes.
So now we have 4 permanent employees.
In
whereas
this
we
case,
don't
though,
have 2 of
so
them.
this period, Mrs. Rona, is because we have increased our elementary debt. Now, when we did that, we apprised the board that
Right, yeah,
We
the
discovered
teachers
teachers.
is a bad example, because
Yeah,
yes,
that's right.
we're but then let's just take the assistant, director for special ed. Perfect. That's a new position, that's not something that we have, and we did decide when we extended the school day, we knew we were gonna have teachers. It bothers me a little that we're paying for them under a grant, but I get it, we have this grant funding, we need to use this grant funding or we're gonna lose it, and this meets the qualifications, so we're just kind of, I get that.
We have conversations all the time about, okay, well, in 3 years, this money is gone, what would go, what will we pay for? And those are the ongoing conversations. And just to address Scott's point, I would really dispute that we haven't spent most of this money on academic advancement. The entire first page is on academic advancement. By attending enrichment and the discovery period and high school tutoring, we are advancing students' reading and writing abilities.
Yeah, but I just want to respond to that. When 330 is projected and 30 is the revised cost, that is a concern to me.
That's because the high school students were were taking advantage of our extra help period and not taking advantage of the evening tutoring periods. So we made it available. If it was something that took off, we would have expanded that money. But they were able to get what they needed in terms of extra help within the contractual extra help period.
Well, I guess we'll see that when we see regional scores, but I'm not necessarily sold. And once again, I'm not castigating anybody, but in terms of looking at this, the optics to me just seem to be that it's not.
So let me just finish my point, please.
You want to get Mrs. Conway before, because we've heard from 2 board members, I thought we were going to wait for everybody. Right, sorry. No, she was going to respond to me after all the board members had spoken.
I'd be happy to speak next, because it kind of piggybacks off of what Dr. Gallagher was saying, so I don't want to say.
Mrs. Verona wasn't finished
Oh,
yet.
I'm so sorry.
You finished,
Are
okay.
you sure? Okay. In looking at, I know you asked for our responses, so in looking at this and how I see it is that there is money going into, just like Dr. Gallagher said, into the enrichment, into those teachers, the high school tutoring, although out the end I see what they're saying, but it wasn't fully utilized, but it is there.
And my concern is academic.
I understand.
That's instructional.
No, I understand. I kind of take a different approach. I'm looking at it a little differently, the way the grant money is being used, and so I feel the academics are there. But I also do see there's money being put into other areas, like that emotional, social worker, the COM app. And then there's some really interesting things here being done. The Cold Spring Harbor lab, the space flight experiments, those are things that we probably wouldn't be doing if we didn't have this grant money. And as far as the crew team, I think one of the important things about crew is that you don't have to have a certain skill. That was pointed out to me, I think by Dr. Gallagher, when we talked about it once before. You don't have to be an athlete per se, you just have to practice.
You have to be able to swim?
I
would think so. If you're out in a scull or Reynolds Channel, I would think so.
I think so, but I think the point here is that it's a new opportunity for our students. And so you're asking for my response, so that would be my response, is that I think it's, it's covering a lot of different bases. I hear what you're saying, but I don't want to say I disagree with you. I feel that it's being utilized in a nice way. And thank you for presenting it, and that's my opinion.
Great, thank you. Ms. Conway?
Mr. DeVito, thank you so much for your presentation. Wow, I didn't know it was going to be so heated tonight.
He's in terms of the temperature or conversation?
Everything, conversation, but it's all good. I think it's great that we're actually talking like this in front of everyone, so you can see the transparency, and so you know that you can also always ask the hard questions, just like the kids started off the meeting saying the hard questions. I do see it as, in a way, you're presenting for the whole child. That's how I see all of these programs. For years past, we always said our kids weren't interested in science and math. Well, this program is kind of like gearing towards making children motivated and inspired to learn science and math, with all of the robotics, the space program, the greenhouse, the Cold Spring Harbor Lab. So I see it as a way of teaching the whole child. And it's not easy. And you're right, Ms. Verona, about seeing grant money, because that is the scary part. It's easy sometimes to present programs, but when we say, oh, we have to cut, then those are very difficult decisions, which I'm sure we will all take very seriously when that time comes. But one of my questions is, how are we going to measure all of these programs and how they are successful, or if they're not, and how are we going to tweak them? So that's a great question. I think there are two levels to measuring success. The first and foremost, and I'm going to get to the answer of this question, is that academics is the most important thing. More than $2 million of this $3 million grant is directly on academics for our students. Enrichment, high school tutoring, special needs students, camping, all of this page, except for career, is on STEM instruction, which also increases literacy and math, environmental education, robotics. More than $2 million out of the $3 million. So one way that we should see is an increase in our overall academic achievement as measured in a variety of things, which we look at every year. Another piece is in our student engagement. We have identified that consistently as an issue here. We have had in the past a chronic absenteeism problem. And one way that we know we can reach students is by engaging them with activities that reach their interests. Many of these things address that factor as well. So do our attendance rates go back up post-COVID? We went from come to school to don't come to school to different. Do our grades go up? Do our achievement scores go up? Do we have reports from parents and students that their children are invested in these programs, that they're engaged and love them, as we're getting this year with the after-school enrichment program? And finally, we're going to look at the cost benefit. Crew on here is a fairly minor expense. $30,000 a year. If 5 people go out for the crew team and it doesn't fly, that's something that, maybe for those 5 kids is great, but it is not a cost benefit balance in terms of doing that. So all of those things we go through every year on an evaluative basis for all of our programs, but particularly for any programs.
Dr. Gallagher, can I add to that? Just in regards to the math and literacy piece, Dr. Ryan raised that. This presentation tonight from Mr. DeVito that talks about the one ARC grant and how this money is being allocated. We do have other grants throughout the district. Our ESSA grant, for example, our Title I funding goes regularly to math and literacy and AS support services. Our Title II grant funding goes for professional development for teachers and instruction related to math, literacy, other subject areas. Our Title III grant money, goes to our ENLs, our English language learners. And we do put regular costs there and in our budget that we know are going to be recurring costs in the areas of math and literacy. To your point, we did look, I know, in this relief money to identify some, single-time costs like the CNC router, the plasma cutter, the greenhouses, things like that. That we could allocate this money for, because we didn't want there to be the math and literacy support type things that we want to keep regularly in our budget and our other grant funding that would need to come out of the 3 years. So that was a priority when identifying some of these items.
I just want to go back. I really don't want to belabor the point, and I really don't see it as overheated. I see it as a pretty intelligent discussion, which I'm happy to participate in. But if in fact we're going to spend $600,000 for after-school activity, I think the research is quite clear that kids aren't going to come to school unless reading and math are not a versa for them. But if in fact they can participate in that. So I don't see them coming after school unless they come to school from 9 to 3. And once again, I know this is a difficult task, and we can disagree, and I'm welcome for the disagreement. That's why we're elected. We're not elected to all parrot the same point. But for me, I don't think we can spend enough if we're given a $3 million grant in the primary grades in math and reading, because I think this is where the money is needed in terms of kids. In terms of that, the other stuff is nice, but in terms of the focus, assistant director of special ed, I'm not so sure that should be part of the grant. In terms of that, I didn't support the position. I don't support the position in terms of that. You can make any kind of justification if you want it, but for me, it's not appropriate appropriation for this grant as far as kids catching up. But that's just where I stand.
In the spirit of having an intellectual conversation, I would also then argue that flip side is that if you have students that are engaged and find things outside of academics that link them to school, it may anchor them more into one coming more often. Therefore, they're learning better when they're there because they're more present. That social emotional piece that maybe wasn't met is now being met. So it can go hand in hand and go both ways. So I respect, your opinion on the fact that obviously we're here to educate students. That's our priority. That's our number one goal. That's what we do as a board, is support student education and learning. And math and reading 100% has to be part of that equation. But I also think we have to acknowledge that when we have this grant money, what better to spend it on than these extra things that could maybe potentially anchor these kids and help them learn while they're here. So I think it could go either way. And again, we could argue it or talk
We're
about
not
it.
arguing it, we're not
No, I
arguing.
get it. We could discuss it all night long. But the point that I want to just bring across is that, I think these conversations are great to have, obviously, amongst the board and amongst in front of the public, so you hear, the way we discuss things, and I appreciate having the conversation.
Okay. Dr. Gallagher, I cut you off. Do you have anything else to say? Did you feel like you made your point?
I think I made that.
Okay, thank you.
Just one more quick question. How many social workers are covered underneath this grant? Just so I'm clear, is it only one?
One,
Is
but
that
it includes
700
benefits.
social workers that we hired last year? Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, student mobilization announcements? Questions or comments from the public on tonight's agenda only? Please, if this is your first time, please come up. If it's your first time, if you just give your name and address, come up to the microphone. Name and address, please. And as the cover sheet says, everybody has 3 minutes to make their point.
Hi, this is Jane Greenblatt, 442 Sweet Street, Albany, New York. I was late at the time package, I apologize in advance. I do have a question about the tutoring, so it's the first time I've heard of it. And I'm sure I'm not the only person who's been 425 miles an hour. And there's a hefty conversation about academics. So I think if this is something that's available to people, it's certainly something that's gonna help in that area for people who really need it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Presentation, Mr. McKenna.
I'd ask the board to consider item number 1, which has 2 parts. It's the BOCES vote, approval of the BOCES administrative budget, and the election of the 3 candidates to the BOCES board.
Yes, may I just ask before we vote on this, if yourself and Mr. DeVito could just give us a short synopsis of why we vote on the BOCES vote and what services, auxiliary services BOCES provides to the district, please.
Sure. So BOCES stands for Board of Cooperative Educational Services, and BOCES functions kind of as a cooperative, I don't want to say like a clearinghouse, so that districts can participate in shared services as a way of promoting efficiency and providing, different ways that districts can lower their costs by, buying in bulk or participating in programs that districts can't run themselves. So BOCES runs our summer school. We send students out to BOCES placements, both for occupational training, vocational training, and for special education placements. They provide professional development and a number of other business and kind of functions for districts. They are often leaders in competitive bidding that allows us to get bids that we can share in districts rather than going out on our own, as well as many other proposed shared services, we do some curriculum development. And so they are kind of a part of us, and each district in Nassau County is asked to vote each year to approve the BOCES budget and also to approve, to vote on BOCES candidates. It happens that the 3 candidates run unopposed Otherwise, you would have to select to go for this year. Mr. Trujillo, did I miss anything there?
So we'd like to add a couple things. First, if you take a look at the line-by-line budget, you'll see in the object code, which are the 3 digits in the middle, 0.49, codifies every BOCES related expenditure in every function within our budget. So if anybody wanted to see, what are we doing, or what type of expenditure, whether it's in instruction or in transportation, you'll be after the 4 digits of the function, and it'll be 0.49. The other thing I want to mention is that we get aid back on it. So the state encourages districts to participate in the shared services provided to BOCES, and as you could say, somewhat of a reward is we get aid back, varying depending on what the expenditure is. So there are incentives built into the system to participate in BOCES because the state wants us to participate in the shared services program.
Great, thank you. May I have a motion?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Pace?
Yes.
Ms. Rowland? Ms. Conway?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
And yes, ask the board to consider items 2 through 4.
I'll make a motion. May I have a second?
Okay.
Ms. Conway, second. Any discussion?
I would just like to wish all of our students who are attending the United State of Mind best of luck. You go get it.
Any other discussion? Okay, Ms. Pace?
Yes.
Ms. Rowland?
Yes.
Ms. Conway?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Board of Education, additional new old business. I just had 2 items. I just wanted to ask the district clerk, are we okay in terms of polling places for the election in May? Okay, in terms of that. And if you just keep an eye in terms of what kind of cost savings goes into that, just to alert those that may not know, we've sort of consolidated polling places in terms of, it used to be we had 7, and then we went to 5, and now we're going to 3. Because we didn't think that we should be making expenditures in terms of all day paying people to work in polling places when people weren't coming to vote. So we established there'd be 3 polling places, one in the west end, one in the central of the town, and one in the east end, to accommodate any folks who wanted to vote in the budget, vote in the trustee election in May. So we've done that. We've got to go through a rigmarole with the Board of Elections. So we thank you for your patience with that until, and we'll be curious to see how it goes. Thank you for your help with that. And the last, I just wanted to get a clarification in terms of the graduation and moving up ceremonies, Dr. Gallagher, in terms of, last year it was sort of neat, behind the administration building on the lawn to have the elementary school graduations. And rather than having them in the morning, having them later in the day, because parents found that that was more, it was easier for them in terms of accommodating their work schedules. So is that going to be the routine come June?
Yes, we had decided at the end of last year to build the expense of the tent rental into our budget going forward, because we did get some great feedback that parents really appreciated it. I think it also made it more special for the kids to graduate outdoors in front of the school where they'll attend next year. It was a really nice event, and we'll be continuing that. So one good thing that came out.
Great. Anybody else?
I'd just like to say thank you for the donations of the piano and the donations of the money for the Long Beach girls football team. I just think that's so nice when people donate to us, so thank you. I was going to say the same. Thank you.
Okay, questions and comments from the public? Sir? Yes. Ma'am, you can be prepared to talk after yourself. Thank you. Sir, if you just give your name and address, please.
Good evening, my name is Andrew Mahalek. I live at 63 Belmore Avenue, Point Lookout. I am here tonight to express my strong objection to this board's disenfranchisement of hundreds, if not 1,000 or more voters in Point Lookout by the closure of the voting location at Bishop Moore Rec Center in Point Lookout. A center and voting location that's been in use every year for at least 11 years, and likely a lot more than that. Board members, this is not Texas or Georgia, where voter suppression is a popular political game. This is New York, where we go out of our way to make it easier for more people to vote. Many of the disenfranchised voters, I'll point lookout, are elderly, and many have limited availability of transport to a voting location that is over 2 miles away. The board's action is especially suspicious, I think, because many of those voters, who, as I said, are elderly and often on fixed incomes, might very well be viewed as those who are likely to vote against the budget. Further, entry to the new location for Point Lookout voters at the elementary school complex down here next to the golf course is unmarked. It's an incredibly difficult place to get to when you're driving. It's unmarked. You have to go through part of the golf course driving parking lot to get there. There are buses coming in and out, school buses and other traffic. I was down there yesterday, I nearly got broadsided as I went into the parking lot by somebody else trying to get into the school parking lot. Ladies and gentlemen, this change is at best poorly thought out. It has no rational basis to remove that voting location. It eliminates a convenient and necessary voting location for many voters, thus disenfranchising them and suppressing their right to vote. I would strongly urge the board to take whatever action is necessary to reconsider and to reinstate the Bishop Malloy Rec Center as a voting location for this year. To do otherwise, to not do it, and to disenfranchise the voters of Point Lookout will be seen as a stain on this board. Thank you.
Coming up. Yeah.
Hi, Jessica Latour, 666 Neptune Boulevard. I just have a quick question. During breaks or during holidays or during the summer, when the school playgrounds are closed, who can we contact to get them open? Because East was closed multiple days during Easter break. West was closed during one of the days of Easter break, and we had kids running around the neighborhood in the middle of the street having light playgrounds.
Really, they're open. Do you know why they might have been closed, Mr. DeVito?
They may have been closed on the days when our facilities department had a holiday. So if it was Friday, last Friday, and this past Monday, but if it was during the week, I'll have to follow up on that.
It
Because,
was, East School was specifically on Thursday, that it was on.
right. So unless they were doing some specific maintenance where they purposely closed it, it should have been open, so I'll follow up on that.
Thank you. Is there somewhere we can call when there's a break, that we can get a number that we can call to find out if someone can unlock or if the school?
Sure, it's 897-2120, which is our facilities department, because typically they have a different calendar than the student school calendar.
That was 897-2120.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for coming up.
I seem to recall in years past when this had been an issue, that it was the roving security guard who opened up the playgrounds in the morning. Are you sure it's facility?
It's not usually not the rover that opens, it's usually the facilities, the building staff who open, and I know that that's the rover that ensures that they're closed and locked as they move. But it should be supposed to be open. I think we had said 7 a.m. and then at dusk, and dusk, changes time of year. But I think those were the hours that we had established. Building, custodial staff, open and close, and then the rover would make sure that they're secure.
The announcements, which classroom?
Which classroom teachers association? Okay, thank you. Administrative supervisory PPS group? No. LBSD no. Parent Teacher Association? Sacrament?
Good evening. Units apparently posting Mr. DeVito at their meetings where he's presenting the budget. Next week's meeting is virtually on Wednesday at 7 p.m. if anyone would like to come and attend and see the budget presentation. And also in recognition of Administration Professional Day and Teachers Appreciation Week, we wanted to say thank you for all you do for our children.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
May I have a second? Ms. Page, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Good evening, everybody.